On the planet Zerelia, the palace of the ruling family stood tall with shining towers and glowing banners. It was a place of power and pride. But hidden deep inside, behind golden doors and long empty halls, lived the youngest daughter of the royal family, Princess Kira. She was different. Princess Kira was small, quiet, and often sick. Unlike her older siblings, who were tall, strong, and confident, Kira's body was delicate. Her voice was soft. Her skin was a lighter shade than most Zerelians. She didn't look like a leader, and in her world, that mattered too much. The royal family had high hopes for all their children. Every son and daughter was meant to marry someone powerful and expand the family's control over nearby systems. Kira was expected to do the same. But things didn't go as planned. One by one, alien princes and noble sons from across the stars came to meet her, and one by one they rejected her. "She looks too weak," one said. "She won't survive our planet's gravity," another laughed. "She's not fit to rule beside me," a third declared, loud enough for the whole hall to hear. The rejections piled up like cold stones on Kira's heart. She stopped going outside. She stopped speaking during family dinners. And slowly, people in the palace stopped talking about her at all. To most, she was a forgotten name, a silent shadow behind the royal curtain. But Kira never gave up completely. Every morning, she still dressed in her finest clothes and looked out the tall glass windows of her chamber. She read books from ancient libraries. She studied the stars, learned about history, and wrote thoughts in her secret journal. Her body may have been small, but her mind was sharp and curious. "I may not be what they wanted," she often whispered to herself, "but I am still someone." Years passed. Then one day, everything changed. The palace buzzed with excitement. An important diplomatic meeting was about to happen. Leaders and representatives from over 20 planets were arriving to discuss trade and peace. Among them, for the first time ever, came a human. His name was Jack, a simple name for someone from a distant world called Earth. Humans were still new to the galactic community. Most species didn't trust them yet. Some even looked down on them. But Jack was different. He wasn't afraid to walk into a room full of alien leaders. He wasn't worried about how others looked at him. He was just himself. When Jack entered the palace, he greeted everyone with a smile. He bowed politely to kings and queens and shook hands with commanders. He spoke in a calm voice, asked smart questions, and listened closely. Some aliens didn't take him seriously, but he didn't mind. On the third day of meetings, Jack wandered into the palace garden during a break. It was a quiet place filled with blue flowers and floating light orbs. There, under the shade of a crystal tree, sat Kira. She was reading a book. When she looked up and saw him, she froze. Most aliens walked away when they saw her. Or worse, pretended she wasn't there. But Jack walked right up to her. "Hi," he said kindly. "Is this seat taken?" She blinked. "No. You may sit." He sat down beside her and glanced at the cover of her book. "History of Zerelian Diplomacy," he read aloud. "That sounds important." She smiled faintly. "It is, but no one ever wants to talk about it." "I do," Jack said. And just like that, a conversation began. They talked for nearly an hour, about history, books, the stars, and even Earth. Jack never once looked at her with pity or judgment. He didn't laugh at her soft voice. In fact, he leaned in to hear it better, and when she spoke, he listened like every word mattered. When Jack stood up to leave, he smiled again and said, "You're the most interesting person I've met here." Kira didn't know what to say. No one had ever said something like that to her. As he walked away, Kira felt something strange in her chest. It was warm, soft, new. Hope. Princess Kira could not stop thinking about that moment in the garden. Jack's voice, his smile, and the way he looked at her with kind eyes. None of it faded from her mind. No one had ever spoken to her that way, before. Not even her own family. The next day she returned to the same garden bench. She brought a new book with her, though she barely read it. Her heart beat a little faster with each passing minute, wondering if Jack would come again, and then he did. He walked into the garden carrying a drink in one hand, looking around calmly. When he saw her, his face lit up. "There you are," Jack said. "I was hoping I'd find you again." Kira gave a small smile. "I came to read, but I don't mind company." "Good," he replied, "because I brought 2 drinks. One's yours." He handed her a small glass filled with a sweet, cold juice made from local fruits. She accepted it, surprised. "You didn't have to. I wanted to," he said simply. They sat under the crystal tree again. This time their conversation was longer. Jack told her about Earth, how it had oceans that moved in waves, forests with animals that could jump between trees, and snow that fell from the sky in soft white flakes. Kira listened with wonder. "I've never seen snow," she said quietly. "You'd love it," Jack replied. "It's quiet, peaceful, and everything looks clean and new." She imagined herself standing in a snowy forest, feeling the cold air and hearing nothing but silence. It felt like a dream. Jack noticed her faraway look. "You know," he said, "when I got the mission to come here, I thought it would be all stiff handshakes and long speeches, but meeting you, that's been the best part." Kira looked down, her cheeks warming slightly. She wasn't used to compliments, not real ones. "You don't think I'm strange?" she asked softly. Jack raised an eyebrow. "Why would I?" "Everyone else does," she said. "They think I'm too small, too weak, not enough." Jack leaned forward. "Well, I don't. I think you're strong in ways they don't understand, and you're more than enough." His words felt like sunlight on a cold day. Kira looked at him, and for the first time in a very long time she believed someone truly meant what they said. But not everyone in the palace was pleased. Later that night, a high-ranking alien noble named Lord Varn approached Jack during a formal dinner. Varn was tall and proud, his voice always loud, his eyes always judging. "I saw you in the garden with the princess," he said, sipping from a glass. "You are aware of her reputation, yes?" Jack remained calm. "I saw a kind, intelligent woman. That's all that matters." Varn gave a short laugh. "You humans are strange. You always look for meaning where there is none. The princess, she's harmless. Useless." Jack's face grew serious. "That's where you're wrong." The noble stepped closer. "Careful, human. We Zarelians remember who belongs at the top, and it is not her. You'll only damage your name by staying near her." But Jack didn't back away. Then maybe this empire needs to rethink what it values. With that, he turned and walked away. Across the room, Kira had seen the entire exchange. She saw Jack stand up for her. No one had ever done that before, not once. Her heart felt full, like something inside it had been broken and was now being gently repaired. The next morning, Kira received a message, a simple line written by Jack himself. "Meet me by the Western Tower at noon. I want to show you something." She arrived on time, curious. Jack was already waiting, holding a small device in his hand. He pressed a button, and a projection appeared in the air. It was a snowy forest, just like the one he had described. Trees covered in white, snowflakes falling, everything calm and still. Kira gasped softly. "It's beautiful." Jack smiled. "I thought you might like to see it. It's not the real thing, but it's close." She turned to him, eyes shining. "Why are you doing this for me?" Jack looked at her gently. "Because you deserve to feel what others feel. To see what others see. To be treated like someone who matters." Kira felt a tear slip down her cheek. Not from sadness, but from something warm. Something new. Gratitude. No alien male had ever stayed. No one had ever cared to show her anything, beyond duty or pity. But this human man, a stranger from a distant world, had looked at her like she was more than enough. And that changed everything. The palace of Zerelia was no longer as calm as before. A sudden crisis had spread across the nearby star system. The planet Trenzar, a trading partner of Zerelia, was facing civil unrest. A few rogue groups had taken over important cities. Trade routes were blocked. Diplomats were under threat. The Zeralian Empire had to respond quickly. The Emperor called an emergency meeting. All royal children were ordered to attend. Each would give their plan to help solve the crisis. It was a test, a way to prove their leadership. Whoever offered the best solution would earn greater respect and a stronger chance to lead the empire in the future. Kira was not expected to attend. Her older siblings arrived in shining armor, dressed in royal robes. They shared bold plans, full of military moves and strong words. The nobles listened closely, to each one. But in the back of the hall, something unexpected happened. Princess Kira walked in. She wore a simple royal outfit, nothing flashy, and held a small data pad in her hands. The room went quiet. Whispers filled the air. She came? Why? Is she here? She won't last 5 minutes. Jack stood at the side, watching carefully. He believed in her. He had seen her heart, her mind, and her quiet strength. Now she just had to show it to the rest of the empire. Kira stepped forward and bowed politely. With permission, I would like to present my plan. Some nobles frowned. The emperor narrowed his eyes but gave a small nod. Speak. Kira took a deep breath. Her voice was soft, but steady. We should not send soldiers immediately. The people of Trenzar fear outside force. That's why they are fighting. If we attack, we will only make things worse. What's your answer then? One general scoffed. She looked at him calmly. We talk. We send trained negotiators, people who understand both sides. We offer food, water, and medicine. We listen to their concerns. Then we rebuild trust. After that, we can bring peace. Some of the nobles looked unsure. Others shook their heads. One said, "That's too slow." Another added, "She's dreaming. That won't work." But Jack stepped forward. With respect, he said, "As a human, I've seen what happens when empires only use power. Sometimes strength is in listening, not shouting." A few leaders murmured. Others looked thoughtful. The emperor stood and spoke. "Let her try. If she fails, we will use other methods." And just like that, Princess Kira was chosen to lead the first peace mission to Trenzar. 2 days later, Kira and Jack arrived on Trenzar in a small ship, along with a team of translators and peacekeepers. The planet's skies were gray with smoke. Roads were broken. People stared at their ship with cold, angry eyes. Kira stepped out first. "I am not here to rule you," she said to the crowd. "I am here to listen." Her words spread quickly. At first, few believed her, but she kept visiting homes, speaking kindly, bringing food and medical help. Slowly, walls began to fall. Children smiled. Families asked questions. And after a week, even the local leaders agreed to meet with her. Jack stayed by her side the whole time. He didn't speak much during meetings, but he was always there. He made sure she was safe. He helped translate when needed. And at night, they would sit under the stars and talk about how far she had come. "You're doing something amazing," Jack told her. "They trust you." Kira nodded, her eyes soft. "It's not easy, but it feels right." One night, a group of angry rebels tried to stop their peace talks. They set fire to a small outpost and blocked roads with broken machines. Everyone was afraid, but Kira stood in front of the crowd and raised her voice. "Stop the fire. Come, speak to me. If you are angry, let me hear why." Her voice echoed through the cold air. After a few tense minutes, the rebels stepped forward. They told her their fears, their pain, their stories. Kira listened. She didn't interrupt. She didn't judge. At the end, she said, "Let us work together to fix what was broken." The leader of the rebels slowly lowered his weapon. "You are the first royal who didn't look down on us." That night, the fire stopped. The peace talks continued. Back on Zerelia, News of Kira's success spread like wind across the empire. The forgotten princess had done something no one expected. She had brought calm without violence. She had used her heart and mind, not ships and weapons. The Emperor was silent for a long time after hearing the report. Finally, he said, "She has done well." The nobles had no choice but to agree, but some of them began to whisper in corners. "She's rising too fast. That human helped her. This could change everything." In the shadows, not everyone was pleased, but Kira didn't know that yet. She only knew that Jack had stood beside her when no one else did. And now, she believed she could do more. Princess Kira's name was now being spoken across many planets. She had returned from Trenzar not as the forgotten daughter, but as a rising leader. Her peaceful mission had brought new hope to the empire. News stations praised her. Citizens spoke proudly of her wisdom, and leaders from other planets sent letters of respect. But inside the palace, not everyone was celebrating. Some nobles gathered in quiet rooms, whispering in fear and frustration. They had laughed at her before. Now they were afraid of what her success meant. If Kira continued to gain power, everything would change, including the royal traditions that kept the strong above the weak. "She's too soft," one noble said. "She's being guided by that human," another added. Lord Varn, one of the most powerful nobles, spoke with a cold voice. "If she becomes a real leader, she'll welcome humans into our politics. She'll weaken our bloodline. She must be stopped before it's too late." Rumors began spreading. Some said Kira had broken rules during her mission. Others said she had used trickery to gain support. But the worst rumor of all was about her growing bond with Jack. "He's just a human," one alien noble whispered, "and yet she walks beside him like he's her equal." Kira heard the whispers. She was used to being ignored or mocked, but now the words were different. Now, they weren't just about her. They were about Jack, too. And that made her angry. In a quiet, controlled way. "I didn't do all this alone," she told her father, the Emperor. "He helped me." The Emperor looked at her with tired eyes. "He is not one of us." "But he stood with me when no one else would," she replied. The Emperor didn't answer. He turned and walked away, leaving Kira standing alone in the throne hall. Later that week, Kira invited Jack to her private study. It was a quiet room filled with books, star charts, and small glowing stones. She liked this space. It was hers. No guards, no noise, just peace. Jack entered with a smile, but Kira looked serious. "Something's wrong," he said gently. She nodded. "They're trying to turn the council against me. And they're using you to do it." Jack sat beside her. "Let them talk. We both know the truth. But words have power," she said. "And here, in this palace, even lies can shape the future." Jack was quiet for a moment, then said, "What do you want, Kira? Do you want me to step back? Let you move forward without me?" She looked at him, eyes wide. "No, I want you beside me." He gave a soft smile. "Then I'll stay." They didn't need to say more. The next day, Kira was called to a high council meeting. Every major noble and military leader was present. She entered the great hall with her head held high. Jack was not with her. This time she faced them alone. Lord Varn stood and pointed his long finger. "Princess Kira, we question your loyalty. You allowed a human to influence your mission. You shared royal knowledge with an outsider. You risked our empire's secrets." Kira spoke calmly. "Jack is a diplomat. He followed every law. But your closeness to him is not proper," another noble said. "You are a royal. He is a foreigner." Kira raised her voice slightly. "And yet he showed more loyalty to this empire than many of you have. While you spoke in circles, he acted. While you judged me, he supported peace." Some nobles looked uneasy. A few nodded in agreement, but Lord Varn was not finished. "If you continue this relationship, we may have to remove you from the line of succession." The words hit the hall like thunder. Kira stood still. Her hands were shaking, but only slightly. "I see," she said. "Then let me speak clearly." She stepped forward. "I will not give up the person who believed in me. I will not follow a tradition that values power over kindness. If I am to lead one day, I will lead with my heart, and with those who helped me rise." A long silence followed. Then one noble stood. "A woman from the outer colonies. She brought peace to Trenzar," the woman said. "And we need leaders like that." Another noble followed. "I support her." But the hall was divided. The emperor watched all of this in silence. At last, he stood. "This council will decide nothing today," he said. "Leave us." The meeting ended, but the storm was not over. That night, Kira stood on her balcony looking at the stars. Jack joined her, his eyes soft. "How bad was it?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "I stood my ground, but they won't stop. They fear what we represent." Jack placed a hand on the railing. "Let them fear it. Change always comes with resistance." Kira nodded. "Then we'll face it. Together." And in that moment, they knew something had changed forever. Not just in the palace, but in the galaxy itself. Princess Kira continued her work despite the growing tension in the palace. Every day she received messages from distant colonies, requests for advice, thanks for her peace mission, and support from smaller leaders who felt inspired by her strength. Many looked at her as a symbol of change, but others saw her as a threat. Inside the palace walls, a plan was quietly forming. Lord Varn, along with a few loyal nobles, had decided they could no longer wait. They feared what would happen if Kira gained more power. Worse, they feared the example she was setting. Working with a human, speaking gently, listening before acting. To them, it was weakness. "We must stop her before she ruins everything," Varn said in a dark meeting room. "And we must make sure she falls publicly." Their plan was simple: cause an accident during an important event, make it look like Kira had failed to lead, and then blame her in front of the Empire. The perfect moment came quickly. A peace conference between Zeralia and a once hostile race, known as the Drexari, was scheduled. The Drexari had been enemies for generations, but Kira had worked hard to bring them to the table. This meeting would be her biggest moment yet, and the perfect time for Varn to strike. The palace prepared for the Drexari arrival. Flags were raised, food was prepared, and guards were placed at every corner. Kira oversaw the plans herself. Jack helped her quietly, offering calm advice and checking over every detail. But no one saw the small device placed under the main power console in the meeting hall. It was set to overload the power system, causing a fire and chaos. The goal was not to hurt anyone badly, but to create fear and confusion, enough to ruin Kira's reputation. The Drexari delegation arrived on time. They were tall, armored beings with serious faces and deep voices. They entered the hall slowly, watching everything with sharp eyes. Kira welcomed them with dignity, offering peace in her words and respect in her tone. "We wish to build a new future," she said. "Not one of fear, but one of trust." The Drexari leader nodded. "We are listening, Princess." Then, just as everyone sat down, a sharp sound rang out. Sparks burst from the wall. A flash of light followed. The power systems exploded. Fire leapt from a control panel. Alarms rang through the palace. Panic broke out. Guards rushed in. The Drexari stood confused and ready to fight. Smoke filled the air. For a moment it seemed like peace had been lost again. But Kira did not run. She stepped forward through the smoke, waving her arms. "Do not panic. This was not an attack on you." One of the Drexari shouted, "Then what is it?" Jack ran to the side panel and used a manual control switch to shut off the alarm. The noise stopped. He turned to Kira and nodded. "Someone planted a device. I saw the signature. It wasn't an accident." Kira's eyes narrowed. "Then, we find out who did it." She turned back to the Drexari. "I give you my word, this was not a trick. I would never risk your safety. Someone is trying to ruin what we're building." The Drexari leader looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "We believe you." Later that evening, the investigation confirmed the truth. A sabotage device had been hidden under the control console. Only someone with high access could have placed it there. Jack showed the findings to the Emperor. The Emperor's face grew dark. This was an attack on peace. On my daughter. He ordered a full search. Lord Varn tried to hide, but one of his own guards betrayed him, revealing the truth. Varn was arrested. The news spread fast. Kira had not failed. She had stayed calm during danger, and with Jack's help had protected everyone, even the ones who doubted her. The Drexari sent a message the next morning. "We will continue peace talks. We now trust her more than ever." That night, Kira stood outside in the palace garden. The stars above her looked brighter than ever. Jack joined her, as always. "You were amazing today," he said. "I was afraid," Kira replied honestly. "But I couldn't run. You didn't need to. You stood your ground." She looked at him. "You saved us too, if you hadn't acted fast." "We saved it together," he said. "Always together." They stood in silence, the night breeze gentle around them. But now, things were different. Kira was no longer just the forgotten princess. She was a leader, trusted even by former enemies, and those who once tried to silence her were now exposed. Still, the path ahead wouldn't be easy, because change, even when right, always brings resistance. But Kira was ready, and Jack would be there, with her every step of the way. After the failed sabotage and Lord Varn's arrest, Princess Kira's respect grew even more. Her name was now spoken with honor in every royal court and across many colonies. Even her older siblings, who once ignored her, started to treat her with new respect. For the first time in her life, Kira felt she truly belonged. But with fame came pressure. One morning, the Emperor called her to his private chamber. The room was large but quiet, filled with old books and star maps from past rulers. "I have news," the Emperor said. "A marriage proposal has come for you." Kira's eyes widened slightly. "From whom?" "The Crown Prince of Yeltron," he replied. "He is powerful. His family rules 3 systems. This alliance would make our empire stronger." Kira stood still. She knew the Yeltron Prince by name. He was respected, known for his wealth and pride. But they had never met. He had never once spoken to her. "Why now?" she asked softly. "Because now you are valuable," the Emperor said plainly. "Your success has changed everything. They no longer see you as weak." Kira's heart felt heavy. For so long she had wished to be seen, to be heard, but now that she was finally respected, they wanted to use her like a tool again. "I need time to think," she said. "You have until tomorrow," the Emperor replied. "After that, we give our answer." Kira returned to her chamber and looked out the window. Far below, she saw Jack walking through the garden speaking to a young royal guard. He looked calm like always. She walked down to meet him. "You look troubled," Jack said as soon as he saw her face. "They want me to marry the Yeltron Prince," she told him. Jack didn't say anything for a moment. Then he asked, "Do you want to?" She shook her head. "No. He doesn't know me. He never cared before. Now he sees me only because I've become important." Jack nodded slowly. "Then tell them no." "It's not that easy," she replied. "This alliance could bring power, peace, stronger trade routes." He looked into her eyes. "But what about your happiness? Your heart?" Kira looked down. "No one ever asked me that before." "Well," Jack said gently, "I just did." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Kira whispered, "You chose me when no one else did. You stayed." "I always will," Jack replied. The next day, Kira returned to the Emperor's chamber. "I will not accept the proposal," she said firmly. The Emperor frowned. "You are turning down power, status, and security." "I am choosing something greater," she said. "I am choosing to lead in my own way." With someone who respects me not for what I give, but for who I am. Do you mean the human? He asked coldly. Yes, she said. His name is Jack. He stood with me when no one else did. He helped save the peace treaty. And he never once judged me for being different. The Emperor stared at her. For a long time he said nothing. Then he spoke slowly. You are strong. Stronger than I expected. I do not fully agree with your choice, but I will not stop you. Kira bowed her head in respect. Thank you, Father. That evening she found Jack once again in the garden. I made my choice, she said. He looked at her, curious. And? I turned down the prince. A quiet smile appeared on his face. You followed your heart. She nodded. And now I have something to ask. Kira took a deep breath. Her voice was clear and strong. Would you stay here, with me? Not just as a friend, but as my partner. Jack was surprised, but only for a moment. Then his face lit up. I thought you'd never ask, he said with a smile. She laughed, softly. Is that a yes? Yes, he said, without hesitation. Word spread quickly. The princess had chosen a human man over a royal prince. The council was shocked. Many nobles whispered in secret meetings. Some were angry, some didn't understand, but others admired her courage. The people, common citizens across the empire, celebrated. She chose the one who stood by her. She proved love and respect matter more than status. Young girls in distant colonies wrote her name on their school walls. Traders from other planets spoke proudly of her bold decision, and the Draxari sent a final message to the royal court. This is true strength, to follow one's heart without fear. In the quiet of the evening, Kira and Jack stood together on the palace balcony. The stars stretched far above them. I used to watch these stars and wonder where I belonged, she said. And now? Jack asked. She looked at him with soft eyes. Now I know. I belong where I am respected, where I'm free to be myself. And that place is with you. He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Together they faced the stars, not as ruler and outsider, but as equals. And somewhere deep inside her heart, the little girl who once felt rejected was finally at peace. Months had passed since Princess Kira made her bold choice. The galaxy was still talking about it. Some called it shocking, some called it foolish, but many called it brave. She, once the forgotten princess, had chosen a human man, Jack, over status and tradition. It wasn't just about love. It was about freedom, respect, and showing the galaxy that real strength comes from within. Kira's decision began to inspire others. Leaders from small colonies started opening talks with human diplomats. Interspecies friendships grew stronger. New voices rose in the Galactic Council, young voices who wanted peace, not pride. And at the center of this change stood Kira and Jack. A grand event was prepared in the capital city. The Empire had decided to honor Kira officially, not just as a royal, but as a symbol of unity. The event was called the Day of New Dawn. Thousands arrived from different planets. The Draxari sent warriors as guests. Humans came from Earth, dressed in formal robes. Even former critics now stood in silence, waiting to witness history. Kira wore a silver blue gown made from silk, woven by artists from the outer moons. Her crown was light and simple, with a single glowing stone at the center, a symbol of calm strength. Jack stood beside her, wearing the robes given to him by the palace. He had no title. He didn't need one. His presence alone was enough. They walked through the great hall. People from every corner of the galaxy bowed, not just to the princess, but to the bond she had chosen. A bond that had changed the course of many lives. Later that evening, as the sun set and stars returned to the sky, Kira and Jack stood alone on the highest tower of the palace. This doesn't feel real, Jack said softly, looking out at the lights of the city below. It is real, Kira replied, and we built it, together. He turned to her. Do you ever miss the old days? Before all this responsibility? She smiled. I miss the quiet sometimes, but I don't miss hiding. I don't miss feeling like I didn't belong. You belong here now, Jack said, and not just because of your title. I know, she said, taking his hand. Because of you, I remembered who I am, and I'll never forget that again. The peace between Zerelia and its former enemies grew stronger in the following weeks. Kira was invited to lead the first shared council between humans and the Draxari. She accepted. Jack didn't always attend those meetings, but he always waited when she returned. One day, after a long meeting, Kira returned to the garden where they had first spoken. She found Jack sitting under the same crystal tree. He looked up and smiled. Come to escape politics? Just for a while, she said, sitting beside him. They sat quietly, watching the soft lights in the trees. You know, Jack began, when I first met you, I just wanted to say hello. And you changed my whole life, she said with a soft laugh. I didn't do anything special, he said. You saw me, Kira replied. That was more than enough. Later that month, a new law was passed in the Empire. It allowed open cultural bonding between species, something that had once been restricted. Kira supported it fully, and Jack helped draft parts of the language used in the law. The galaxy was changing, slowly, but clearly, and Kira's story became part of history. Children in schools read about the Princess of Peace. Artists painted scenes of her standing in smoke-filled rooms holding her ground, and everywhere her name was mentioned, Jack's name followed, not as her protector, but as her equal. One final evening, as the twin moons rose high, Kira and Jack sat beside a small fountain in a quiet courtyard. Do you ever wonder, Jack asked, what would have happened if I never walked into that garden the first day? Kira smiled, remembering. I do. And? She looked at him gently. Then I might still be hidden, still waiting for someone to see me, still hoping for a voice to say, you matter. Jack looked into her eyes. You always mattered. You just needed someone to remind you. She leaned her head on his shoulder, and in that peaceful moment with no crowds, no titles, and no pressure, they simply stayed there, two hearts from different worlds, beating in perfect rhythm, together.